The summer I turned 23, I thought I had my entire life figured out. I was working at a marketing firm in Seattle, dating a guy named Marcus who checked all the boxes my mother approved of, and sharing an apartment with my best friend from college, Riley Chun. Everything was precisely as it should be: neat, predictable, safe. Looking back now, I realize how much energy I spent maintaining that illusion of certainty. Riley and I had been inseparable since our freshman year at the University of Washington. We'd bonded over late-night study sessions, terrible dining hall food, and a shared obsession with obscure indie films. She was the person I called first with good news, the shoulder I cried on during breakups, and the only human being who knew about my secret stash of trashy romance novels. Hidden behind my business textbooks, we were different in almost every way. I was careful, analytical, always planning 3 steps ahead. Riley was spontaneous, creative, the kind of person who would book a flight to Portland on a Tuesday afternoon just because she wanted to see the Japanese gardens. I wore neutral colors and classic cuts. She dressed like she was perpetually on her way to an art gallery opening in Soho, all flowing fabrics, unexpected color combinations, and vintage jewelry that somehow always looked perfect on her despite our differences. Or maybe because of them, we fit together seamlessly. Moving in together after graduation felt inevitable. Like the natural next chapter of our friendship, our apartment was a small 2-bedroom in Capitol Hill, with hardwood floors that creaked and windows that looked out over the street. Riley had transformed the space with her artistic touch, thrifted furniture she'd refinished herself, plants in every corner, string lights that made everything feel warm and magical. My contributions were more practical: a functioning coffee maker, organizational systems for the kitchen, and regular reminders to pay the utility bills. It was a Thursday evening in late June, when everything shifted. I'd come home early from work, exhausted from a presentation that hadn't gone as well as I'd hoped. Marcus had texted to cancel our dinner plans, something about a work emergency, and I was secretly relieved. The thought of pretending to be upbeat and engaged felt overwhelming. When I walked into the apartment, what of pretending to be upbeat and engaged felt overwhelming. I could hear music playing from Riley's room, some dreamy, atmospheric indie band she'd been obsessed with lately. I kicked off my heels, which had been torturing my feet all day, and called out, "I'm home." "In here." Riley's voice floated from her bedroom. "Come tell me about your day." I padded down the hallway in my stockinged feet, already mentally composing my rant about my micromanaging boss and the client, who couldn't make up his mind about the campaign direction. Riley's door was ajar, and I pushed it open without thinking. She was standing in front of her full-length mirror, changing out of her work clothes. It wasn't the first time I'd seen Riley in various states of undress. We'd lived together for over a year. We'd been friends for 5 years before that. There had been countless instances of casual nudity between us, changing in dorm rooms, trying on clothes before nights out. That weekend we'd spent at her family's lake house where we'd shared a bathroom. But this time was different. This time, I actually saw her. She was wearing a black bra and jeans she was in the process of peeling off. And in that moment, something in my brain short-circuited. The light from her window cast her in this golden glow, highlighting the curve of her waist, the elegant line of her spine, the way her dark hair fell across her shoulders. She was moving unself-consciously, reaching for a t-shirt draped over her desk chair, and I was frozen in the doorway, unable to look away and unable to understand why my heart was pounding in a way that felt both foreign and terrifyingly familiar. So, Riley glanced at me in the mirror, pulling the shirt over her head. "How did the presentation go? Did Steven finally approve the social media strategy?" I realized I'd been staring, silent, for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. I managed, my voice coming out strange. No. It was complicated." She turned to face me fully now, concern crossing her features. "Are you okay? You look flushed. Are you getting sick?" "I'm fine," I said too quickly. "Just tired. Long day, but I wasn't fine." My hands were shaking slightly, and there was this fluttering sensation in my chest that I couldn't name. I mumbled something about needing to change and practically fled to my own room, closing the door and leaning against it. What was that? I never experienced anything like that before. Sure, I could objectively appreciate when women were beautiful. I had eyes, after all. But this was something else entirely. This was the way I felt when I first started dating someone. That electric awareness of their presence, that magnetic pull, except Riley was my best friend. My female best friend. And I had a boyfriend. And I was straight, wasn't I? I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was just stressed or hungry or hormonal. But that night, lying in bed, I kept seeing that image of Riley in her room, the light catching in her hair, the unself-conscious grace of her movements. I didn't sleep well. Over the next few days, I tried desperately to return to normal. I avoided being alone with Riley when I could, made excuses to stay late at work, and spent more time with Marcus. As if his presence could somehow prove that everything was as it should be. But Marcus, sweet and stable as he was, had never made me feel the way I'd felt in that doorway. Our relationship was comfortable, easy, predictable. We liked the same restaurants, had similar career goals, and rarely argued. My parents loved him. His parents loved me. We were, by all accounts, a perfect match. So why did kissing him suddenly feel like going through the motions? Riley noticed something was off. Of course she did. She knew me better than anyone. Are you avoiding me? She asked one evening, cornering me in the kitchen while I was making tea. Did I do something wrong? What? No, I said too emphatically. I'm just busy with work stuff. She leaned against the counter, studying me with those perceptive dark eyes. Ava, I've known you for 5 years. I can tell when you're lying. Talk to me. I busied myself with the tea kettle, unable to meet her gaze. I'm not lying. Things are just complicated right now. Is it Marcus? Did something happen? No, Marcus is fine. We're fine. Everything is fine. You said fine 3 times in one sentence. That's definitely not fine. Despite everything, I almost smiled. This was so typically Riley calling me on my bullshit with that perfect blend of gentle concern and no-nonsense directness. I'm just figuring some things out, I said finally. Hoping she'd leave it at that. She was quiet for a moment, then reached out and squeezed my hand. Okay, but when you're ready to talk, I'm here, always. The warmth of her touch sent that same electric feeling through me, and I pulled away perhaps a bit too quickly. Thanks, I mumbled, grabbing my tea and retreating to my room, alone. I sat on my bed and forced myself to confront what I'd been avoiding for days. I was attracted to Riley, just admitting it. Even in the privacy of my own mind, felt like stepping off a cliff. Because if I was attracted to Riley, what did that mean about everything else? About my relationship with Marcus? About my understanding of myself? About every assumption I'd ever made about my sexuality? I never questioned being straight. It had never occurred to me to question it. I dated boys in high school, men in college. I had crushes and butterflies and all the normal experiences that straight girls had. Sure, I never felt any overwhelming passion, but I chalked that up to having a practical personality. Not everyone was meant for grand romantic gestures and all-consuming love affairs, but now, thinking back with this new awareness, I started to notice things I'd missed before. The way I'd felt unusually invested in my female friendships throughout my life. The way I'd sometimes feel a strange jealousy when those friends got serious boyfriends. The way I'd catch myself staring at women in coffee shops, on the street, in movies, and how I'd always told myself I was just admiring their style or their beauty in an aesthetic. Weighed out the way I'd feel something indefinable. Shift in my chest when a certain type of woman smiled at me. Had I been lying to myself all along? Or was this genuinely new, something awakened by Riley specifically? I didn't have answers. All I had was confusion, fear, and a growing awareness that I couldn't unknow what I now knew. I decided I needed perspective from someone outside the situation. The following weekend, I met my college friend Jasmine for brunch at our favorite spot in Fremont. Jasmine was openly bisexual, confidently herself, and had always been someone I admired for her authenticity. We ordered mimosas and avocado toast, falling into easy conversation about work and mutual friends. But eventually she tilted her head and said, "Okay, what's going on? You've had this weird energy since you got here." I took a long sip of my mimosa, gathering courage. "Can I ask you something? About sexuality stuff?" Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she just nodded. "Of course. How did you know?" I asked. "That you were attracted to women, I mean. Like, how did you figure it out?" Jasmine set down her fork, giving me her full attention. Is this about you or someone else? Me, maybe, I don't know. She smiled gently. Okay, well, for me it wasn't one big revelation. It was a lot of small moments that added up. I remember being 14 and realizing I had a crush on my friend's older sister. I'm not straight, I said, still trying to catch my breath. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. I've been dying to tell you. Riley, I've been falling for you for months. Months? She looked dazed. But you never said anything, never gave any sign. Neither did you? I said, laughing a little. We've both been sitting on this? I thought you were straight, she repeated. You've always dated men. You were with Marcus. I thought I was straight too, I said. Until you. Or maybe it was never about being straight or not straight. Maybe it was about not meeting the right person yet. Either way, I know how I feel now. I'm in love with you, Riley. I have been for a while. Her eyes filled with tears. Say that again. I'm in love with you. She kissed me again, softer this time, tender in a way that made my chest ache. I've been in love with you since our junior year of college, she whispered against my lips. Maybe even before that. I just didn't let myself acknowledge it because I thought it was hopeless. Junior year? I pulled back to look at her. That long? Remember that winter when you had the flu and I took care of you for a week? I brought you soup and tea and we watched terrible reality TV shows? She touched my face gently. That's when I knew. You looked awful, like, truly terrible, and I still thought you were the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. And I realized I would do anything for you. Anything to make you smile. I remembered that week. I felt so cared for, so safe. And I remembered thinking, even through my fever haze, how lucky I was to have Riley in my life. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure myself out, I said. I'm sorry you had to wait. Hey, she said firmly, tilting my chin up so I had to meet her eyes. You took exactly as long as you needed to. There's no timeline for this stuff. What matters is we're here now. We're here now, I repeated. The truth of it settling over me like sunlight. We stayed in the kitchen for a long time. Just holding each other, occasionally breaking apart to look at each other and wonder before kissing again. It felt surreal and also like the most natural thing in the world. Eventually, we migrated to the couch, curling up together in a way that was familiar but now held entirely new meaning. Riley ran her fingers through my hair and I rested my head against her chest, listening to her heartbeat. So what now? I asked. Now we figure it out together, she said. One day at a time. No rushing. No rushing, I agreed, though part of me wanted to rush everywhere with her all at once. We talked late into the night, confessing things we'd held back, laughing about the misunderstandings and near misses, making plans for a future that suddenly looked completely different than it had that morning. At some point, Riley said, I need to thank that moment you walked in on me changing. That's when things shifted for you, right? I felt my face heat. You knew? I noticed something was different. You got all weird around me for a while. I was afraid I'd done something wrong. Now it makes sense. I saw you and just saw you, I tried to explain. Like really saw you for the first time. It was like my brain finally processed what had been true all along. She smiled. I'm glad your brain finally caught up. Me too, I said. Kissing her again because I could now, because this was real and allowed and mutual. That night, I slept in Riley's bed for the first time, just sleeping. Both of us too emotionally exhausted for anything else. But lying there in her arms, her breath soft against my neck, I felt a peace I'd never experienced before. This was what it was supposed to feel like. This was home. The next few weeks were a bubble of happiness punctuated by moments of adjustment. We were learning each other in a new way, navigating the shift from friends to whatever we were now. Girlfriends, we decided eventually. Though the word felt both too small and perfectly right, we took it slow, savoring each new discovery. The first time Riley linked our fingers in public, walking through Pike Place Market, I felt a mix of joy and nervousness. What would people think? Would they know we were together? Did I want them to? But mostly, I was just happy holding her hand. We told our friends gradually. Jasmine, unsurprisingly, was thrilled and claimed credit for providing crucial counsel during your gay crisis. Our college friends were supportive, if somewhat surprised. A few admitted they'd wondered about us before, which was both validating and mortifying. You two have always had chemistry, one friend said. We just thought you were both oblivious. We were oblivious, I thought. But not anymore. The harder conversation was with my parents. I'd always been close with them, and the thought of disappointing them terrified me. But Riley held my hand through the phone call. And when I stumbled over my words trying to explain, she gently took the phone and introduced herself as my girlfriend with such confidence that it gave me courage. My parents were confused at first, then concerned, then slowly accepting. We just want you to be happy, my mom said finally. If Riley makes you happy, then we'll support you. It wasn't a perfect response, but it was a start. Riley's parents, who I'd met several times over the years, were wonderful. Her mother hugged me and said, I always hoped, which made me cry and made Riley laugh. Work was another adjustment. I started noticing the casual heteronormativity in my office, the assumptions about everyone's partners, the way people talked about dating and relationships. I came out to a few close colleagues first, testing the waters, before changing my emergency contact and relationship status in the company system. Each step was small but significant. A declaration that I wasn't hiding anymore. Our first real fight as a couple happened in October. Over something silly that became about something deeper. I made plans to have dinner with some work friends without checking with Riley first, forgetting that we'd vaguely talked about doing something that evening. When I came home to grab a jacket before heading out, she was hurt that I'd forgotten and frustrated that I wasn't prioritizing our relationship. I'm not trying to be clingy, she said, her arms crossed. But it feels like you're keeping me in this separate box. Like you're not fully here. That's not fair, I protested. I'm allowed to have other friends, other plans. Of course you are. But we used to communicate better when we were just roommates. Now it feels like you're pulling away. The accusation stung, particularly because there was a kernel of truth to it. I had been pulling away slightly, not because I wanted to, but because I was scared. Scared of moving too fast, scared of losing myself, scared of this being too good to be true. I'm not pulling away, I said, but my voice was uncertain. Riley's expression softened. Ava, what's really going on? And then I was crying, confessing my fears that I wasn't good at relationships, that I didn't know how to be someone's girlfriend, that what if I was bad at this and lost her? Hey, Riley said, pulling me close. You're not going to lose me. We're both figuring this out. But we have to talk to each other. We have to be honest about what we're feeling, even when it's scary. I'm scared all the time, I admitted into her shoulder. I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared I'll mess this up. I'm scared that one day you'll realize you could do better. She pulled back to look at me seriously. Eva Martin, you are brilliant and kind and more than enough. You're not going to mess this up by being yourself. And there is no better than you. How can you be so sure? Because I've known you for 5 years. I knew you before this, remember? I fell in love with exactly who you are, the whole package. Your overthinking, your spreadsheets, your terrible taste in reality TV, your terrible taste in wine, all of it. I laughed through my tears. I don't have terrible taste in wine. You bought a bottle yesterday because you liked the label. It had a cute dog on it. She kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. See? Perfect. My perfect girlfriend who chooses wine based on dog cuteness. We talked for hours that night, really talked about our fears and expectations and needs. We established better communication, agreed to check in with each other regularly. Promised to voice concerns before they became resentments. It wasn't our last fight. But it set a pattern. We talked things through, we stayed honest. We chose each other again and again. By November, we'd settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable and right. We were partners now in the fullest sense, sharing not just an apartment but a life. We cooked dinners together, planned weekends together, navigated the small annoying details of cohabitation together, but it was also different from friendship in wonderful ways. The casual intimacy of it, falling asleep together most nights, waking up tangled in each other, stealing kisses in the kitchen while making coffee. The way Riley would absently run her fingers along my arm while we watched TV. The way I'd find excuses to touch her constantly, her hair, her hand, her shoulder. We're being gross, aren't we? Riley said one evening when our friend Marcus, yes, The same Marcus who'd stayed friendly came over for dinner and caught us being particularly affectionate. Very gross, he agreed, but he was smiling. Disgustingly happy. I am happy, I said, lacing my fingers through Riley's. Disgustingly so. Later that night after Marcus left, Riley said, "You know what's wild? We were friends for 5 years. We lived together for over a year. And somehow this feels like the most natural progression. Like we were always heading here. Do you think we were? I think some people are just meant to be in each other's lives," she said thoughtfully. You deserve someone who makes you feel alive. What about you? I deflected. You haven't dated anyone seriously in ages. Why is that? She looked down at her plate, a small smile playing at her lips. I guess I've been waiting for the right person. And also, she hesitated, then met my eyes. I've been trying to figure some things out about myself too. My pulse quickened. What kind of things? Just what I want. What I'm willing to settle for versus what I actually need. She shook her head. Sorry, that's vague. I don't mean to be cryptic. You're not being cryptic, I said softly. I get it. I'm figuring things out too. We held each other's gaze for a moment longer than necessary, and I felt something shift in the air between us. Something unspoken but undeniable. The moment was broken by our server arriving with the check, and we fell back into safer territory, debating which movie to see. We ended up at an indie theater showing a retrospective of Wong Kar-wai films. Settling into the plush seats as the lights dimmed, the movie was In the Mood for Love, which I'd never seen but Riley had been wanting to watch again. It was beautiful and melancholy, a story of two neighbors who form a deep connection while suspecting their spouses are having an affair. The tension between the lead characters was palpable, all longing glances and almost touches. Desire constrained by circumstance, I was acutely aware of Riley sitting beside me in the dark theater, her arm inches from mine on the armrest. At one particularly poignant scene, she leaned over and whispered, "This is my favorite part." Her breath warm against my ear. I couldn't focus on the movie after that. All I could think about was how badly I wanted to close that small distance between us, to take her hand again, to know if she felt even a fraction of what I was feeling. When the credits rolled and the lights came up, we sat for a moment in silence. What did you think? Riley asked. It was beautiful, I said. And sad. All that chemistry, all that connection, and they never actually... I know, Riley said quietly. Sometimes I think that's more powerful, though. The almost... The what if? We walked back to the car in the warm evening air, neither of us in a rush to end the night. When we got home, Riley suggested we open a bottle of wine and sit on the small balcony off our living room, under the string lights Riley had hung, with the sounds of the city around us and glasses of wine in our hands. The atmosphere felt charged with possibility. Today was really nice, I said. We should do this more often. We should, Riley agreed. She was quiet for a moment then. Can I ask you something personal? My heart jumped. Sure, when you were with Marcus? Did you love him? The question surprised me. I thought I did. But looking back, I think I loved the idea of him more than I loved the actual person. Does that make sense? Yeah, she said softly. It does. Why do you ask? She took a sip of wine, seeming to gather her thoughts. I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between what we think we should want and what we actually want, and how sometimes we can be so busy following the script that we miss what's right in front of us. I felt like we were talking about something without talking about it, circling around meaning without landing. What do you want, Riley? She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a second I thought she might say it, whatever it was that was hovering in the air between us. Instead, she smiled and said, Right now? Another glass of wine and more of this perfect weather. The moment passed, but something remained in knowledge, that we were both aware of something neither of us was quite ready to name. August arrived with a heat wave that made our unair-conditioned apartment feel like a sauna. Riley and I took to spending our evenings at the neighborhood park, lying on a blanket under the trees, seeking any breath of cooler air. One particularly hot evening, after we'd been lying side by side for a while, reading our respective books in the fading light, Riley suddenly sat up. Want to go swimming? She asked. Where? The pools are all closed by now. She grinned, that mischievous look I'd seen 1,000 times before she suggested something impulsive. Lake Washington. Come on, it'll be an adventure. An hour later, we were parked near Madison Beach, walking down to the water's edge with towels under our arms. The park was officially closed, but the beach was accessible. And we weren't the only ones with this idea. A few other people dotted the shoreline. Taking advantage of the warm night, Riley stripped down to her swimsuit unself-consciously, and I tried not to stare as I did the same. We waded into the water, which was cool but not cold. A relief after the heat of the day. This was a good idea, I admitted as we swam out deeper. I have them occasionally, Riley said, floating on her back, looking up at the darkening sky. I floated beside her, our arms occasionally brushing in the water. Above us, stars were starting to appear. Ava? Riley said after a while. Yeah? I'm really glad you moved in with me. This year it's been really special. For me too, I said, meaning it in ways I couldn't fully express. We floated in comfortable silence, and then Riley said, almost too quietly, I don't want things to change between us. My heart clenched. Why would they change? I don't know. Sometimes things just do. People grow apart, or life gets in the way, or... She trailed off. I wanted to tell her that nothing could make me want distance from her. I wanted to tell her that my feelings for her had only made our friendship deeper, more important. I wanted to tell her everything. Instead, I said, you're not getting rid of me that easily. You're stuck with me, Chun. She laughed, and I felt the water ripple between us. Promise? Promise. We swam for a while longer before finally heading back to shore, wrapping ourselves in towels and sitting on the beach as we dried off. Riley leaned her head on my shoulder, and I held very still, not wanting to disturb the moment. Best friend beach party, she murmured. Best friend beach party, I agreed, even though the words felt insufficient for what I was feeling. On the drive home, singing along to the radio with the windows down, I realized I was completely, irrevocably in love with her. Not just attracted, not just infatuated in love, and I had no idea what to do about it. The question of what to do became more urgent as summer drew toward fall. Living with Riley while harboring these feelings was becoming increasingly difficult. Every casual touch felt significant. Every late-night conversation felt intimate. Every time she came home from a date with someone else, I felt my chest constrict with jealousy I had no right to feel. I knew I had 3 options. Tell her, move out, or learn to bury it. The third option felt impossible. I'd spent enough of my life not acknowledging my true feelings. The second option felt like giving up, like losing something precious because I was too afraid to risk it, which left the first option. The terrifying one I rehearsed it 100 different ways in my mind. Casual, hey, so funny thing, I think I might be in love with you. Serious, Riley, I need to tell you something important about my feelings. Apologetic, I'm sorry, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. None of them felt right. I talked to Jasmine again, who was supportive but realistic. You know, there's no perfect way to do this, right? You just have to be honest and accept whatever comes next. She might feel the same way, or she might not. She might need space, or she might want to work through it. But you can't keep carrying this alone. She was right. I knew she was right, but knowing and doing were 2 different things. The catalyst came in mid-September, on a Friday evening when Riley arrived home looking upset. She dropped her bag by the door and immediately headed for the kitchen, pulling out a bottle of wine without a word. Bad day? I asked from the couch. Bad year, she muttered, pouring herself a generous glass. Bad life, maybe? I got up and joined her in the kitchen. What happened? She took a long drink before answering. I went on a date today. At lunch, this woman from the Arts Council who seemed really interesting, and we'd been texting for weeks, and I thought maybe finally... She shook her head. But the whole time I was sitting across from her, I just kept thinking about how she wasn't. She stopped abruptly. Wasn't what? I prompted gently. Riley looked at me, her eyes swimming with emotion. Wasn't you? She said quietly. The world tilted. What? I whispered. She set down her wine glass, her hands shaking slightly. God, I wasn't going to say anything. I've been trying so hard not to say anything. But I'm so tired. Ava, I'm so tired of pretending that you're just my friend, just my roommate. Just this person I happen to care about more than anyone else in the world. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Riley, I know, she said quickly. I know you don't feel the same way. I know you're straight and you just got out of a relationship with a man and this is probably the last thing you want to hear. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I don't want to make things weird. But I can't keep going on dates hoping to find someone who makes me feel the way you make me feel because no one ever does. No one ever will. And I crossed the space between us in 2 steps and kissed her. She made a small sound of surprise against my lips. And then she was kissing me back, her hands coming up to frame my face. It was nothing like kissing Marcus, nothing like kissing any of the men I dated. It was overwhelming and perfect, and it felt like coming home when we finally broke apart. Both breathing hard, Riley stared at me with wide eyes. What, you? But you're... I remember being in college and feeling more excited about dates with women than with men. But honestly, the biggest tell was how it felt in my body. When I was attracted to someone, really attracted, there was this pull, this want. And I felt that for people of different genders. I nodded slowly, recognizing exactly what she meant by that pull. Why are you asking? Jasmine said carefully. Are you questioning things? I think maybe I've been attracted to women my whole life and just didn't let myself acknowledge it, I said quietly. Or maybe I'm just now discovering it. I don't know which is worse, thinking I've been oblivious, or thinking I'm going through some kind of identity crisis in my 20s. Neither is worse, Jasmine said firmly. And both are incredibly common. Sexuality can be fluid. Understanding of ourselves can evolve. There's no timeline or deadline for figuring this stuff out. But I have a boyfriend, I said, and even to my own ears, it sounded like a defense. I've always dated men. I've never even kissed a woman. Okay, and? You could be bisexual. You could be a lesbian who didn't realize it yet. You could be going through a phase of questioning that leads you right back to identifying as straight. All of those are valid. The label matters way less than how you feel. I don't know how I feel, I admitted. Confused, scared, like everything I thought I knew about myself might be wrong. Jasmine reached across the table and took my hand. Can I tell you something? When I first started questioning, I felt exactly the same way. It felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. But you know what? Once I stopped trying to force myself into a box and just let myself feel what I felt, it got easier. Not simple, but easier. What if I lose people? The fear I'd been avoiding finally came tumbling out. What if Marcus hates me? What if my parents don't understand? What if I lowered my voice? What if it's about my best friend and telling her ruins our entire friendship? Understanding dawned in Jasmine's eyes. Ah, so this is about someone specific. I nodded miserably. Riley, my roommate. We've been best friends for 5 years, and suddenly I can't stop thinking about her. And I don't know if it's real or if I'm just confusing close friendship with attraction or Ava. Jasmine interrupted gently. Do you feel the same way about all your close female friends? No, then it's probably not confusion. We sat with that for a moment while I processed. What do I do? I asked finally. Jasmine squeezed my hand. First, you give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling without judgment. Second, you take time to really sit with this and understand yourself better. And third, and this is important, you figure out what you want before you make any major decisions or declarations. There's no rush. What about Marcus? That's something you'll need to figure out, she said honestly. But I will say this, if you're questioning your sexuality, that's probably information your partner deserves to know, even if you don't have all the answers yet. You can be uncertain and honest at the same time. I left brunch feeling simultaneously better and more overwhelmed. Jasmine's advice was sound, but it required a level of honesty with myself and with others that terrified me. That night, I broke up with Marcus. It wasn't a dramatic scene. We met at a quiet wine bar and I told him that I didn't think we should keep seeing each other. He asked if there was someone else and I said no, which was technically true. He asked if it was something he'd done, and I assured him it the truth was more complicated. I couldn't keep dating him while I was figuring out fundamental things about myself. It wasn't fair to him and it wasn't fair to me. He was hurt but understanding, which somehow made it worse. As I watched him leave, I felt sadness mixed with relief. Mostly relief. And that told me everything I needed to know about whether I'd made the right choice. I texted Riley that I'd be home late and spent the next few hours walking through the city, processing everything. When I finally returned to our apartment, it was after 11. The lights were still on. Riley looked up from the couch where she was reading, immediately setting her book aside. "Hey, are you okay? You've been gone all day." "I broke up with Marcus," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "What?" Ava, she was on her feet, crossing to me. "What happened? Are you okay?" And then, without planning to, I started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that wouldn't stop. Riley pulled me into a hug, and I let her, even though her closeness was part of the problem and part of the comfort. "Talk to me," she murmured into my hair. "What's going on?" We ended up on the couch, my head on her shoulder, her arm around me. I told her everything except the most important thing. I told her about feeling lost, about questioning my path, about not being sure who I was anymore. I told her about the identity crisis I was having, about feeling like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life. What I didn't tell her was that she was the reason. "I've woken up." "You don't have to have everything figured out," Riley said softly. "Nobody does. We're all just making it up as we go along." "You always seem so sure of yourself," I said. She laughed, but there was something wistful in it. "That's an illusion. I'm just better at pretending. Trust me, I'm figuring things out too." We stayed like that for a long time, just sitting together in the quiet apartment. Eventually, Riley said, "Whatever you're going through, whatever you're figuring out, I'm here. You know that, right?" "I know," I whispered, but I didn't know how to tell her that she was the thing. I was trying to figure out. The next few weeks were a strange period of limbo. I threw myself into work, spent time with other friends, and tried to give myself space to think without obsessing. I read articles about sexual fluidity and late-blooming queer identity. I watched YouTube videos of women talking about their coming-out experiences. I lurked in online forums, reading stories that felt eerily similar to my own. Slowly, tentatively, I started to accept what I'd been resisting. I was attracted to women. Whether that made me a lesbian or bisexual, I wasn't sure yet. But the attraction was real and it wasn't going away. And yes, a significant part of that realization centered on Riley. But I still didn't know what to do about it. Riley and I fell back into our normal rhythm, though I was hyper-aware of her in ways I hadn't been before. I noticed the way she absent-mindedly tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The way she laughed with her whole body. The way she touched my arm when she was making a point. The particular brand of shampoo she used that I could sometimes catch a hint of when she walked past. I realized with growing certainty, completely and hopelessly falling for my best friend. One Saturday evening in late July, Riley came home from a gallery opening in Pioneer Square, eyes bright with excitement. "You have to come see this exhibition before it closes," she said, dropping her bag on the kitchen counter. "The artist does these incredible large-scale photographs that are like dreamscapes of the Pacific Northwest." I immediately thought of you. "Why me?" I asked, looking up from my laptop. "Because they're beautiful but also have this underlying structure, this careful composition. It's emotion and logic at the same time. Very you." The fact that she saw me that way, as someone who could contain both emotion and logic, made my chest feel warm. "Want to go next weekend?" she asked. "We can make a day of it. Gallery, then that Thai place you love, then maybe catch a movie?" It sounded suspiciously like a date. But of course it wasn't. It was just two friends doing friend things. "Sure," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Sounds great." The following Saturday arrived warm and sunny, rare perfect weather for Seattle. I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing my outfit, finally settling on high-waisted jeans and a cream-colored linen shirt that Riley had once complimented. Not that I was dressing for her, obviously. The gallery was in a converted warehouse space, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Riley was right, the photographs were stunning. Large format images of misty forests, rocky coastlines, and mountain peaks, but shot in a way that made them feel otherworldly and intimate at the same time. We moved through the space slowly, sometimes commenting on pieces, sometimes just standing in companionable silence. At one point, Riley grabbed my hand to pull me toward a photograph she wanted me to see. And even after we'd stopped walking, she didn't let go immediately. Her hand in mine felt natural. It felt right. When she finally released my hand, I felt the absence acutely. After the gallery, we grabbed food at the Thai restaurant, sitting outside at a small table under an umbrella. Riley ordered pad thai and spring rolls, and I got my usual massaman curry. We shared dishes as we always did and talked about everything and nothing work gossip. Plans for the rest of the summer, whether we should finally replace our dying couch. "Can I ask you something?" Riley said as we were finishing our meal, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "Always," I said, even as my heart started beating faster. "You seem different lately. Happier, maybe? Or at least more. I don't know, present? Ever since you and Marcus broke up, it's like you've been more yourself." I set down my fork, considering how to respond. "I think I have been happier. The breakup was the right call. We were together because we made sense on paper, not because there was any real passion there." "I'm glad you're happy," she said. And the way she looked at me made me wonder if there was something more behind her words. "You deserve passion, in whatever form that takes. But yeah, I think we were always heading here. We just took the scenic route." December brought our first real test as a couple, the holidays. Riley was going home to California to spend Christmas with her family, and I was expected in Colorado with mine. We'd be apart for over a week, the longest separation since we'd gotten together. "It's only 9 days, Riley said as we lay in bed the night before her flight. 9 days feels like forever," I said. Holding her tighter, she kissed the top of my head. "We'll text constantly. Video call every night. It'll fly by." It didn't fly by. Those 9 days dragged endlessly. But they were also useful in a way. They showed me how solid we were. We talked every night, sometimes for hours, sharing details about our days, our families, our feelings. The distance made me appreciate what we had even more. When I picked Riley up from the airport on the day after Christmas, she dropped her bags and kissed me right there in arrivals. And I didn't care who was watching. "Missed you," she murmured against my lips. "Missed you too. So much." We spent New Year's Eve at a small party with friends, and at midnight, when everyone around us was kissing, Riley pulled me close and said, "Best year of my life." "Just wait," I said. "Next year will be even better." Winter turned to spring, and we continued growing together. We had our routines, now Friday movie nights, Sunday morning farmers market trips, Wednesday dinner at our favorite Thai place. We had our traditions and our inside jokes and our shared language, but we also maintained our individual identities. I had my work friends and my book club. Riley had her art shows and her creative projects. We gave each other space to be ourselves while always coming back to each other. In April, Riley got offered an opportunity to show her photography at a gallery in Portland. It was a big deal, a real step forward in her career. The opening was on a Friday evening, and I took the day off work to drive down with her, watching her that night, standing next to her photographs, talking passionately to gallery visitors about her work. I felt overwhelming pride. This incredible, talented, beautiful woman had chosen me. Every day she chose me. During a quiet moment, she found me in the crowd and smiled, and I mouthed, "I love you," across the room. She mouthed it back, and my heart felt too big for my chest. Later, back at our hotel, she said, "Thank you for being here. It meant everything having you here." "There's nowhere else I would be," I said honestly. She pulled me close, her fingers tracing patterns on my back. "Remember when you said you didn't know how to be someone's girlfriend?" "Vaguely," I said, smiling against her shoulder. "You're really good at it, for the record." "The best. We're good at it," I corrected. "Together." Summer came around again, a full year since that Thursday evening when everything changed. We celebrated with a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. Renting a small cabin near the water. On our last evening there, we walked along the beach at sunset, hand in hand. "Do you ever think about that day?" Riley asked. "When you walked in on me changing?" "All the time," I admitted. "It's wild how one random moment can change everything." "I don't think it was that random," she said. "I think you were ready to see. Your brain was ready to let you notice what had maybe been there all along." "Maybe," I agreed. "But I'm glad it was you. I'm glad you were the one who helped me figure myself out." Riley stopped walking and turned to face me, the setting sun lighting her hair from behind. Can I tell you something? Always. That day didn't just change things for you. It changed things for me too. The way you looked at me, I'd never seen that expression on your face before. And part of me hoped, even though I tried not to, that maybe it meant something. It meant everything, I said. She cupped my face in her hands. I know I don't say this enough, but thank you. For being brave enough to figure yourself out. For choosing to tell me even though you were scared. For choosing me every day since. It's not a choice, I said. Not anymore. Choosing you is as natural as breathing. We kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, and I felt the rightness of it all, the journey here, the uncertainty, the fear, the joy. All of it had led to this moment, to this person, to this love. That night, lying in bed in our rented cabin, listening to the waves outside, I thought about everything that had changed in a year. I thought about the woman I'd been so certain of who she was, so convinced she had life figured out. And I thought about who I was now, more uncertain in some ways, but also more authentic, more alive. What are you thinking about? Riley murmured sleepily beside me. Just how different my life is now, I said. How different I am. Different good or different bad? Different amazing, I said. I spent so many years being who I thought I should be. And now I'm just me, my actual self. And it's because of you. Riley propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me seriously. It's not because of me. I might have been the catalyst, but you did the work. You were brave enough to question everything you thought you knew. You were brave enough to be honest about who you are. That's all you, Ava. We did it together, I insisted. Yeah, she said, smiling. We did. She kissed me softly, then settled back against me, her head on my shoulder. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep. I stayed awake a while longer, thinking about the future. There was still uncertainty, there always would be. I didn't know exactly what label fit my sexuality, and I was learning to be okay with that ambiguity. I didn't know what the next year would bring, or the year after that. I didn't know if Riley and I would last forever, though I hoped we would. What I did know was this: I was in love, and I was loved. I was seen for who I truly was, and I was accepted. I had found a person who made me want to be braver, truer. More fully myself, and that was more than enough. We're still in Seattle. Though we moved to a bigger apartment in Ballard last year, 2 bedrooms, because we both needed office space. But we still sleep in the same bed every night. The journey hasn't always been easy. Coming out is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. I still have moments of uncertainty about my identity. Still sometimes struggle with internalized shame I didn't know I carried. But I'm learning, growing, becoming more confident in who I am. Riley and I have built a life together that feels authentic and right. We have our routines and our adventures, our quiet moments and our celebrations. We've weathered fights and makeups, bad days and beautiful ones. The mundane details of life and the extraordinary moments. Last month, at a friend's wedding, someone asked me about my best friend. I smiled and said, "She's actually my girlfriend. But yeah, she's also my best friend." Because that's the truth. Riley is both my partner and my best friend, my lover and my favorite person. The line between those things blurred long ago, until they became inseparable. Sometimes I think about the alternate timeline where I never walked into Riley's room that day, never had that moment of recognition. In that version, maybe I'm still with Marcus. Still wondering why I feel so unsettled. Still living a life that looks right but feels wrong. I'm grateful that's not my story. My story is this. I saw my best friend changing, and in that moment, I finally saw myself clearly too. I learned that identity can shift, that understanding can come late, that it's never too late to discover who you really are. I learned that love doesn't always look like what you expected, but when it's real, you feel it in your bones. I learned that coming home to yourself is the most important journey you can take, and I learned that sometimes the right person has been there all along, waiting for you to be ready to see them and to see yourself. Riley walks into our living room now, carrying 2 cups of coffee, and settles beside me on the couch. "What are you thinking about?" she asks, handing me a mug. "Just how lucky I am," I say. "Lucky how?" "Lucky that I was brave enough to figure myself out. Lucky that you felt the same way. Lucky that I get to live this life with you." She smiles, that beautiful smile that still makes my heart skip. I'm the lucky one. We're both lucky, I correct, and she laughs. Deal. She says and kisses me. Outside, Seattle is waking up, the sounds of traffic, neighbors, the city coming to life. Inside, we're just two women in love, drinking coffee. Beginning another day together. It's ordinary and it's extraordinary. All at once. And it's more than I ever knew to hope for.